By 1982, Motorhead were at the peak of their commercial success. The dirty, loud, fast three-piece formed by ex-Hawkwind bassist Lemmy had, against all odds, broken through to the mainstream. They were the long-haired metal band that punks loved, the long-haired metal band that the press and the public loved, and of course, actual long-haired metal fans adored them too. With the live album No Sleep Till Hammersmith hitting the #1 slot, regular appearances on Top of the Pops with hit singles like Ace of Spades and hugely successful tours, the future looked bright for the band. But one single, driven by the lusts of Little Lemmy, would break up the classic lineup. And while Motorhead would carry on successfully with other members for decades, fans would always look back at this moment with some regret. As solid a combo that Motorhead remained through later incarnations, the loss of this iconic three-piece lineup always felt like a wasted opportunity, especially when you realise what caused it. In 1981, Motorhead had a hit single in collaboration with Girl School, the pioneering all-girl metal band that Lemmy and the boys had taken under their wing as touring partners and label mates. Their motivation for doing this might remain debatable, but the EP, issued as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, with lead single Please Don't Touch, had been a big success and didn't seem to dent the Motorhead legend at all. Girl School were, after all, a credible metal band who were a respected part of the new wave of British heavy metal, role models for numerous all-girl acts to come at a time when rock music in general and metal in particular was still something of a sausage party. You could count the number of all-girl bands on one hand, and women were generally restricted to lead singer status. Girl School, in other words, were both revolutionary and authentic, so a collaboration with them didn't seem remotely gimmicky. But in 1982, lightning definitely didn't strike twice when Lemmy decided to team up with Plasmatics singer Wendy O for another single. The Plasmatics were punk legends, noted as much for their wild onstage theatrics and former adult movie star Wendy's penchant for skimpy outfits as anything musical that they did. And on paper they might not have been a bad pairing with Lemmy's bunch of outcasts. Like Motorhead, they were loud, genre-bending, musical outsiders. However, Lemmy seems to have been motivated by desires beyond the merely musical. As band employee Crusher has stated, Lemmy agreed to make the record because he wanted to have sex with Wendy, and the collaboration was either the excuse or the price, depending on who you ask. The music industry was a very different place back then. Records led by the penis are rarely memorable, and to make things worse, the song that was chosen for the pair wasn't even a rock number. It was Tammy Wynette's country classic Stand By Your Man. A fine song, of course, but in this context, it immediately put the single into novelty record territory. Heavy rock covers of country songs were never going to be taken seriously, particularly back then when genres remained clearly defined and alternative covers were not a thing. This was, effectively, on the same level as Nelly the Elephant by the Toy Dolls. None of this made Motorhead guitarist Fast Eddie Clarke in the least bit happy. Eddie was justifiably proud of the band's legacy, and he felt that this was an insult to both that and their fans. Worse still, while he was producing the record, he wasn't actually playing on it. The guitar duties went to the Plasmatics' Richie Stotts. Eddie's guitar was an integral part of the Motorhead sound, and with it replaced by a punk performer who was no one's guitar hero, the record seemed even more illegitimate. As Lemmy later explained in his autobiography White Line Fever, the session was problematic to say the least. Wendy took a long time to get in tune and it wound Eddie up. She tried her parts a few times and sounded terrible, I will say that. You'd think she was never going to get it, but I knew she would if I just worked with her. What sort of work that involved is a matter of debate. In any case, Lemmy and Eddie got into an argument during the recording and the guitarist decided there and then to leave the band. In an interview with Eon Music, he explained, "At that session, about 7 in the evening, I said, let's break for something to eat, and I went to the nearest off-license, and I went back to the hotel and got drunk. I couldn't do it. So they came to my room and I said, it's terrible, we're Motorhead and I don't want us to do it. And they said, well, we're doing it. I said, you can't, it's rubbish. But they insisted on it and I said, if you keep insisting, I'll have no choice but to leave the band. They said, alright then, fuck off. In the end, the final record was actually credited to Lemmy and Wendy rather than their respective bands. So, under different circumstances, perhaps even at a different time, it could have been dismissed as a mad solo folly, nothing to do with Motorhead. The band even suggested that Eddie could have publicly slagged the record off and that would have been fine. But in truth, tensions had been rising since the last album, Iron Fist, which Clarke had produced and which Lemmy thought had a substandard sound. And Stand By Your Man was the final straw. Eddie maintained until his death that he was actually sacked rather than quit, but either way, it seems that this one song was the point of no return. To rub salt in the wound, the single wasn't even a hit, was hated by fans of both bands, and now lies as one of several strange diversions that Lemmy would go on during his career. If you think Wendy O was an odd choice, we must tell you about his collaboration with the wholesome singing group The Nolans, and his unreleased duets with Samantha Fox at some point. Of course, all members of the classic Motorhead lineup, along with Wendy O, are no longer with us. In a world of bands like Me First and the Gimme Gimmes doing punked up covers of unlikely pop songs, the track itself actually seems no longer all that outrageous. Perhaps, in fact, it was just ahead of its time. So were you a Motorhead fan at the time, and if you were, what did you make of this collaboration and the fallout that it caused? Indeed, what do you think of it all these years later? Has the record stood the test of time, or is it still as awful as many people said it was on first release? Let us know in the comments. As ever, I'll give you a quick reminder to like this video if you have indeed liked it, or for that matter, even if you haven't liked it. And subscribe to the Overlooked Hotel for more of this sort of thing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.